Okay, thanks. Welcome to the June 18th meeting of the Poland Board of Appeals. The meeting will come to order. This is a public proceeding. Unless the board specifically votes to go into executive session and asks everyone to leave the room, you have the right to hear everything that's being said and to look at all the exhibits that are offered. Please notify the chair if you're unable to hear or see. The board works from a prepared agenda, which we'll be considering tonight's items in the following order. We'll be doing the minutes of our meeting, I believe it was on the July 21st of 2021. And then we'll proceed with communications, and then we'll hear an appeal. And get that page open. So tonight's appeal is for a variance appeal by Stephen Carr, 381 Bailey Hill Road in Poland, and we're talking about map 11, lot 59. And the section of ordinance that we'll be looking at is chapter 5, section 507.2.d.6 on page 85 of the Poland ordinance. For each case, and in this case just one case tonight, we'll be asked to proceed first. And so the proponent will be allowed to speak and will answer questions from the board. And after that, after all proponents have spoken, then opponents get to make their presentations. They'll be questioned by the board. And after opponents have spoken, each side will be given an opportunity for brief rebuttal. In addition, anybody who is either for or against will get a chance to speak as well. The meeting is tape recorded. It is difficult to hear what's being said when multiple people speak at the same time, even though we must have very sophisticated microphones because I don't see them
They're
anywhere.
in the ceiling now.
So that's pretty cool on its own. So please refrain from interrupting people, and all questions should come through the chair. We ask each person offering testimony to come forward to a microphone, which we don't need anymore, and the burden of proof is upon the applicant to demonstrate compliance with the provisions of the applicable ordinance or ordinances. Applicants for ordinances must specifically address and prove criteria on each of the practical difficulty test criteria, in particular undue hardship. Following a decision of the application or appeal toward the end of the meeting, the board will prepare a written decision and indicate findings of facts and conclusions of law that will be mailed to the applicant within 7 days of the board's vote. The applicant's free to stay during the written process, but it's not required. If your appeal is granted, you must obtain a building permit from the code enforcement officer. And if anybody wishes to appeal the board's decision, including the applicant, then you must do so to Superior Court within 45 days. Anybody have any questions on that? All right, well, let me give the thing that I normally say about this stuff is, so a variance appeal and the Board of Appeals is a very different thing than most people are used to. And it's because ordinances are held in such high esteem both by state government and the court system. So it's like this. If you can't comply with an ordinance, you need a vote of 3 members of the appeals board voting in the affirmative to be granted a variance. Not a 2-to-1 vote, even though that sounds like a win to most people, it's not. It's got to be all 3 members. So that's the first thing. I've been on the appeals board now, well, a long time. And there's been very few variances granted. And out of the dozens and dozens we've heard, maybe a handful have been granted. It's a very unusual thing. Just so you know that you have the preponderance of the evidence you really have to provide quite a case to show that you need a variance to the ordinance. That said, we will hear you out and we'll ask you probably lots of questions.
Sure.
And we'll go from there. But let me first go to the minutes of July 21st, 2021. Unfortunately, 2 of the members that were on that, actually one of the members that was on that appeal is no longer with the board.
correct.
So we have to do an odd thing, which is basically, we have to vote on the minutes of the meeting with just two of us. But we really don't have any other choices.
Right.
So we'll just have to do that. And so I would take a motion from the board.
I make a motion to approve the July 21 minutes.
Okay? And I'll have to second it. All in favor? Okay, it's a 2-0 vote. So the next question I'm going to ask, I'm going to ask you a few questions, and it'll seem like I'm going around the bend, but there's a few things I have to make sure we can do. First off, a quorum of the appeals board is 3 members. So the first thing I'm going to ask is, does anybody have a conflict of interest in this particular case and are unable to hear this appeal?
No.
Okay, first hurdle finished. Secondly, Mr. Carr, do you own the property at 381 Bailey Hill Road, and that's identified as map 11, lot 59?
Yes, I do.
Have you been denied a permit by the code enforcement officer?
No, there's a permit granted.
Okay. All right. Permit for the work that you'd
Permit
like to
for,
do?
as is, the building. Yeah.
Mhm, okay. But you want to do something a little different than that?
Yeah, I can explain.
Okay, great. All right, you're on.
Okay. So do you have, you put it up on here, what I sent you?
You can.
Okay. So it's all in slides. So the first slide here, I tried to put it in a PowerPoint format, just to kind of try to explain a little bit more. So, the existing home is, 1860. The existing sunroom was installed, put in, I guess, back in the 1980s. And the closest point to the road is, and this is to the edge of the road, visual distance, because I know things are like to the center of the road and whatnot. There's no lines. There's really no way to identify center of road. So is 42 feet 2 inches. Everywhere else is obviously, I have plenty of room on either side. So this is a distance to road request for variance having to do with an overhang. It's just overhang. It's not the building itself at all, it's just the overhang. So can you go to the next slide? That's where the building is in relation to all of our property, and you have a copy of that in the packet.
Okay.
All right, next slide. So our intention with the building permit, is for what you see here, is basically a sunroom that has a slant to it. So back in the 80s, it was a cool thing to have a timber frame style, sunroom that has, glass that is pitched, so water runs down it and whatnot. Well, what does that what happens when that goes, for years and years, pathways resistance to water, will rot out things, and that's what we're having here. So the intention here is to, bring the vertical, the front wall vertical, and then have a door on the side to be able to have a little bit better egress to the building, honestly. So go ahead and go to the next slide, and we can come back to, this is the setup of the sunroom, and whatnot. So the installed door on the right-hand side is approximately 5.5 feet from the other house, or the other part of the house, and it's the exterior walls of that that we're basically talking about. So two sections about 5-ish feet on either side, left and right, and the front wall of 24 feet. So go to the next slide. So this is the existing setup. So there's the sunroom. You can see that the roof is actually sloping, failing. So I have that shored up to make sure I don't have any more failure. And you can see the drawing here. is a sloped window, basically with, brick on the bottom. And I have here the road edge to the actual flashing is 54 feet 2 inches.
45 or 54?
Sorry, 45 feet 2 inches. Yeah. And it has obviously a brick ledge on it. So what I'm asking for, go ahead in the next slide, get to the point here. So I'm looking to make that front wall vertical. So obviously with the ordinances, everything's by overhang, right? I'm not doing anything with the wall, like not moving the wall closer, anything like that. I mean, other than it's going vertical. But the overhang, to shed the water correctly, is going to be fairly close to the foundation and also the wall. So to shed it correctly, in my mind, from a building science standpoint, I'm basically looking at, can I have 12 inches? So I'm asking for 12 inches. It's kind of a funny thing, but that's all I'm asking for a variance to be able to have a decent overhang, so I don't have rot, from water intrusion and so forth later on. Of course, I'm going to be doing everything I can in my power to, build it to obviously current code, and also it's going to be timber frame, so that has its own directive. Putting some insulation with a timber frame, you put it pretty much on the outside. That'll just give me a little bit of room, to do that, and be able to shed the water correctly. So that's the basis of my variance, is pretty much the overhang. Because if the ordinance said, basically the building, this wouldn't be an issue. But the ordinance, as I'm understanding it, Scott, is overhang, right?
It's the closest point of the structure.
Closest point of the structure.
So, questions from anyone?
So today's standard is supposed to be 50 feet, right?
Yeah, so it's non-conforming.
So it's already non-conforming, and we're not supposed to make anything non-conforming any more non-conforming, correct?
That's what the code says.
Even if it's up in the airspace? It's not encroaching on anybody's house, or?
If you go to page 5350.
Okay.
You said 53?
Yeah.
Non-conforming uses?
No, sorry, wrong page. 81. That's why I couldn't find that. Top of the page,
Yeah.
I, or HM, H1, setback measurements. All setbacks shall be measured from the property line to the nearest part of the structure, except as may be provided for other than provisions of this code.
Is there any other way to do it?
Not really. The issue I have in this case is if I were to move that, beams structure of the wall inward, now I'm needing to do additional, structural things, to the foundation. Trying to reduce, cost as much as possible. I now have to do this all on my own. So, I'm just trying to limit as much as I can. And I mean, even I mean, it's kind of silly, you know, in this, I mean, I get the ordinances and whatnot, but I mean, you know, we're talking inches, you know, on this, and it's, you know, basically because I want to make sure water is shedding. You know, I would never put in what was there. There's a reason why that those are no longer sold and put up anymore, you know, anywhere in the US. Yeah, it's just a very poor design back in the 80s. And, you know, what was done in the 80s, and I don't know when the foundation was put in. I would assume it was back then. So at the time, I don't know if there was a ordinance, you know, that was 50 feet from there, because that was put in after 1860, which is the house, you know, install. So somewhere in there it was allowed, you know, so that's kind of where I'm going is, look, I'm not looking to move anything towards other than just making sure that the water sheds off the building.
May I ask a clarifying question? So the gentleman submitted a building permit which was approved, is that right?
Right, the building permit was approved not to go beyond
Okay.
the closest point.
So the appeal is
what's existing there now.
Gotcha.
Yeah, can you go back one slide? So you can see I have a few inches, you know, from the end of that concrete, or the brick, to what would be, you know, ground. And all I'm asking for is kind of give me a buffer, is really what this is. You know, that's, you know, where I'm at.
Well, let me ask, so what you're saying is structurally, you wouldn't be able to move back to be in compliance with the ordinance because you'd have to pour a new foundation and take out the old one, or?
All that additional structural stuff, I mean,
Well, it sounds like you're doing some structural stuff though with the.
only the wall, only what's rotting right now.
I've got a picture in here, and it looks like this roof line extends out all along the rest of the building. Is that what you're?
Yeah, so if you
What's that
go,
for?
keep on right there. Yeah, so the house pitches away from the road.
Mhm.
So extending a proposed overhang there will allow, and I mean, I'd like to do the whole section there, you know, having kind of like a covered walkway. But basically that allows, can I go to down a couple slides? There you go. That allows that door to go in, you know, so I can, you know, improve the egress, you know, of the house as well. So that's the intention there. That's why, you know, that overhang. But the overhang piece on that would not come anywhere closer. The closest point, go back to the last one we were on. Keep on going up, please, thank you. Right there. The closest point is that corner, 45 and 2 inches. So we're talking literally one corner. So
Which corner is?
the
The closest
right
corner
there,
is here.
45.
It's further away as you get.
Yeah.
Okay, but the measurement I'm seeing, for example, is 51.2 on the corner of that.
So compare 51.2 to 51 feet 2 inches to 54 feet 3 inches. That, those two show that the house is sloping away from
Yep.
the road.
I get that, but.
Yeah.
Were those meant to go to here? Not
Yes,
the house
those,
itself?
no, that goes to the existing house.
Right.
And it's the existing house overhang. So Scott, as of the drip edge was doing, I did a vertical, you know, with that. So the proposed overhang over the walkway area would not get any closer than, number one, if it's not approved, then why have to go with existing? So it would not go any closer. Two, if you grant me a variance, it definitely won't go any closer than what you're allowing. And it probably would just be close to what it would be, because there is no other structure. Like, there's no worry of, overhang and dripping on the building, because it comes out, it would be a walkway underneath it.
If your primary concern is water direction, would a gutter not suffice in terms of sending the water where it needs to go?
Well, I mean, could I make a gutter system within that? So go to, go down, yeah. Keep on going. Yeah, a little bit further, yeah. And then, sorry, to the next one, sorry, to the last one. So if I'm not, allowed the variance, that pitch there is gonna be about a 212 pitch. So I've even been on the point of like, okay, do I need to do a flat roof, and what, system there? But with a 212 pitch, I mean, gutters don't work the best.
Okay.
So it's kind of one of those, you can have ice damming, throughout, even though you have all the protection of ice and water shield and all that stuff, it still is a, point of contention. So I'd rather not even quote unquote encroach more, with a gutter. I'd rather just have it just shut off. Just kind of common sense there.
Any other questions for Mr. Carr?
No.
Okay. Anybody else in favor of this variance request?
I'm Bob Boyer, I live next door to Stephen, and I don't have any problems with it.
Okay. So you're not here to testify either in favor or nor in.
That's right,
Okay.
that's right.
All right. Okay. Any other questions from board members? Okay, so this, and I probably should have talked about this a little bit, but what we'll do at this point is, this is the hearing part.
Yep.
We'll close the hearing and then there'll be discussion from the board. And we won't hear any more from you unless we have a question for you or something like that.
Sure.
Okay, so that's this is your last chance to.
So do you have any other questions for me on anything? Did I not answer anything, as far as making it clear what we're trying to achieve here?
Yeah, well, let me ask another question though. So, I noticed that your electrical service comes in on that wall,
Electrical service comes in.
on the wall of that
okay,
sunroom.
Go to
where
another
you're-
slide.
Where you're putting the door?
Okay, so that electrical service, and Scott could attest to this, there's a electrical permit pulled for moving the electrical to the other side of the house. Let's see, go to, hold on. Go to the next to the last slide. Right there. So, yep, right where your arrow is, right there, leave that arrow right there, yep. That is where the new electrical meter is, and the line has been moved to that. That is actually, that is the picture of the latest. That is the, just beyond, so that box he's pointing to right this second is the Spectrum box. To the left of that, which you can't see, is the meter. So I already moved all that.
So you must have had to move your fuse box then too, I assume.
No,
No?
the fuse box was stayed.
Okay,
So we have the line running, there's a basement underneath this.
okay. And the reason for the door?
Egress.
Okay. And you don't have any other egresses on that side of the house, or how does that work?
To the right of that picture, we have one egress
Okay, so you have one in the center of the old
of
existing
the
house.
old house. Yeah.
Now, the building behind the sunroom, or to the left of the sunroom, that's a garage?
partial garage and partial family room, and,
And there's no egress from that area?
there is, well, on the back hallway there is, from there, but it goes to the garage and goes to the rest of the house, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and the door fits in there without any trouble, you don't have any problems?
We will make sure that
If you-
there's the plan is to have a 36 by 80 door there.
Okay.
So it's a decent, egress door.
Okay. Questions for the code enforcement officer? So, the ordinance talks about not creating a use that's more non-conforming than the existing use. And it seems to me that the problems with the sunroom, I understand, and the overhang situation, I sort of understand. I mean, bringing that wall vertical would require some sort of ability to shed rain or snow. But the proposed overhang on the rest of the building, I don't see the,
I don't think this really shows it very well, but the house, the closest point is that the right-hand side.
Right.
And the house goes away from the road
Yeah.
all the way through. So it wouldn't, what I gave a permit for would not go any closer than that closest point that they showed in the front of that brick shelf.
okay, and I'm okay until I think about it a little more. I understand fixing something that's failing, okay, and making it, and fixing that problem. But that whole additional overhang along the rest of the building.
Right, that's not fixing a problem.
No, that's not fixing a problem, and
But
that's.
it doesn't go any closer than right now, as it's permitted, it wouldn't go any closer than the closest point of the house that's there now.
And is that permitted under the ordinance?
Yeah. You can go to that non-conforming closest second part, but you can't go any further.
But it seems like that's making the house more non-conforming.
No, because you go to that closest point.
Okay, but now more of the house is non-conforming.
Well, more is, but you're not making it more non-conforming by going closer to the road.
Okay.
You say that again? You're not making it more non-conforming by going closer to the road?
You're not making the situation worse by extending that, because you still have, your closest setback is 45 feet, no matter what, or 45.2. And again, this isn't really technical because it's just the edge of pavement. So it would be similar to something in shoreline. You could build to your closest point of the water.
Yeah, but it seems to make the building a lot more non-conforming from my standpoint, because it's inside that setback.
I think I really feel that if you do not go any closer to the road at any point, then you're staying within your nonconformity.
Okay.
On the top of that, page 81, it says, all setbacks shall be measured from the property line to the nearest part of the structure, except as may be provided in other part provisions of the code. Are there any other provisions that would
I
make an
can see
exception?
any other provision that would allow the overhangs to go any closer.
Okay. I'll close the hearing now and go to discussion from the appeals board members.
So I'm looking at the application here, it says, for seeking relaxation of the code would not be contrary to the public interest, and the literal enforcement of the code would result in undue hardship. In my mind, this doesn't meet the standard of being contrary to the public interest. I guess so the undue hardship standard is what we're trying to make a judgment on.
Yeah.
And I guess my question for the two of you is, if you can sort of provide some context on how in the past the board has judged that undue hardship standard.
Yeah, it's a tough, and you've probably read it a few times, and now you're probably wondering, how does anybody get by this?
Yeah, yes I am.
And it's very difficult. So first off, the section of the code that we're looking at is section, let's see, it's page 34 of the code, and it talks about the board shall not grant a variance in locations outside the shoreline zone area within the 100-year floodplain unless it finds that. So my question to the code enforcement officer, which I should have asked earlier, is this within shoreline zoning or within the 100-year floodplain? No. Okay. So we know that we're dealing with that Part D section.
Okay.
So the proposed structure or use would meet the performance standards of the code except for a specific provision which has created the nonconformity and from which relief is sought. Strict application of the code to the petitioner and petitioner's attorney would cause a practical difficulty when the following conditions exist. The need for a variance is due to the unique circumstances of the property and not to the general conditions of the neighborhood. Let me back up. Let me ask another question of the code enforcement officer. When the sunroom was built, did we have zoning at that point?
We probably had zoning, but it would have been more than likely 75 feet from the center of the road. But I have to review that.
Okay. Okay. So the proposed structure would meet the performance standards of the code except for the specific provision which created the nonconformity from which relief is sought. So I think what code officer is saying is back in the day, back in the 1980s, when this thing was built, it probably complied with the setbacks.
Right.
And then the strict application of the code to the petitioner and the petitioner would cause a practical difficulty when the following conditions exist. So the need for a variance is due to the unique circumstances of the property and not to the general conditions of the neighborhood. It sounds like it's the unique conditions of the property. That the granting of the variance will not produce an undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood and will not unreasonably detrimentally affect the use or market value of abutting properties. I think we heard from Mr.
Bollier,
that he doesn't believe that it is going to create that undesirable change in the character of the property. That the practical difficulty is not the result of the action taken by the petitioner or a prior owner. You didn't own it back when it was the sunroom was constructed, Mr. Carter?
No, it was the Fog,
Okay,
was the last name of the owners before.
yeah. Still,
Well,
a problem though.
Yep.
Yep.
That was my point earlier, it's not encroaching a little bit on the road, but it's not impacting anything environmentally. If anything, it's causing his problem to be better instead of worse. It's up in the air. He's not looking to move the foundation, just an overhang.
Right, yep. And the practical difficulty part, that's always the part that we have problems with. And it's the result of an action taken by the petitioner or a prior owner. So here's the problem. Prior owner built the sunroom. Let's say that it was in compliance with the town's code at that point. So they didn't create the nonconformity.
No.
There wasn't a nonconformity at that point.
Right.
So I think we could probably vote affirmatively that the result of the action taken by the petitioner or the prior owner, that the practical difficulty was not action taken by them, but action taken by the town to tighten up the setbacks from the road.
Right.
Okay? Then it says no other feasible alternative to the variance is available to the petitioner. I don't know the real answer to that, but based on the view of the house and the problems he's having with the roof, it doesn't seem odd or strange to me that he would want to go to a vertical wall.
Yep.
I mean, it seems like a solution that most people would say is the most feasible alternative.
Right.
Granting of the variance will not unreasonably affect the natural environment. Boy, I sure don't think that's probably the case.
No,
And that the structure or the land area from which the variance is sought is not located in whole or in part within the shoreland area and the 100-year floodplain. And we've heard testimony from the code officer that neither of those things are.
Right.
So, that the structure or land area for which the variance is sought is not, okay. So, I think that we could, in my opinion, we could grant a variance for something like this. But I'm hung up on the walkway,
Okay.
and it seems like a,
Can I ask you a clarifying question that may?
Sure.
So,
Yeah.
I'm not a math guy, but if the variance is granted and the proposed overhang is built, that closest edge current of the proposed overhang where it meets that sunroom, would that still be farther? Would that still be farther from the road than the existing sunroom, that brick base?
May I approach the screen so I can demonstrate? Your skills on the mouse are excellent, by the way. This is not. So number one, if you, and I don't have it here, my apologies, but if I did have a line, a dotted line of the 54 feet 2 inches, it would be, going this way, and it would be a triangle here, of just air, right? So, if you're granting me 44 feet 2 inches, I'm definitely not going any further than that. There's a good likelihood, and you can state it if you want, that you're, like for this piece, if you don't want me to go any further than 45 feet 2 inches, there is ample opportunity for me to even meet that easily here. So my variance is on the sunroom, not the overhang, because I've already got the permit for that piece. But yes, I would not encroach any further. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, I guess what I'm trying to demonstrate is that even if we grant this variance for the overhang, even the farthest, even the closest part of the overhang to the road would still be farther back from the road than the current closest point, correct?
Okay, so let me answer it this way.
Okay.
If you give me a variance of 44 feet 2 inches, then that means that this goes to 45 feet 7 inches, and that's as far as I would ever go
I understand.
from that. So the answer would be, yes, I'm not going to be going any further, so then this would be whatever the math is of approximately 5.5 feet, minus the, minus that, is, it also would not be any closer. So we're close to the 40, 45, 46 number. So yeah, I would not, it's all gonna be within the line.
Yeah.
So we're allowing an additional foot if we do that.
Technically, but if you don't wanna allow, like, honestly, I'm not asking for this. I can put that back a foot, like, because also I'm not gonna be going, you're not gonna, actually, no, you wouldn't be allowing me a foot. Because I wouldn't be going any closer, than the 44 2 inches. But I would probably be closer to the 45, actually more than that, because this right here is 45 7 inches, so I wouldn't even be closer than 45 7 inches there. If I was lining everything up.
Yeah.
And if I have to have this overhang, if you're telling me okay, keep it to where it's at, then I'll set it back 1 foot from what you approve. But, you know, aesthetically, it'd be nice to look at it, but I'm still not going any closer than 45 feet 2 inches. With or without the variance on this piece, but with the variance I definitely need for here. If that makes any sense.
It does.
Okay, great. I don't know if hopefully I answered.
So how do you guys feel about I mean, I don't have a problem with the existing sunroom, I understand that, and I can agree to a variance for that. I'm having a problem with the walkway that goes out. I mean, I understand Scott's reasoning on that, but it just seems to me to make the building more non-conforming. But he's right, I understand, when somebody rebuilds a camp on the lake, they use the farthest or closest part to whatever, and that's.
Right. It's always the closest part to the overhang, so.
Yeah,
They could have a deck that's out closer, they could build an addition on one side of that deck that goes out to that deck,
right,
no closer to the water.
okay. So, take a motion and make sure it's a positive one, on how you want to, whether you want to grant a variance or not grant a variance, and we'll see, well, we want to make it a positive variance, motion that you'd like to grant the variance, and then we'll go from there.
I'll make a motion
Have
if we
three.
grant the variance.
Okay?
Second.
Moved and seconded that we grant a variance of 1 foot,
12 inches, yeah.
12 inches, for the sunroom in the existing building, that doesn't meet the setback to the road. All in favor?
I,
Aye. Okay.
So is it just the sunroom, or?
No, I think I'm hearing the whole thing.
yeah.
I'm still queasy about it, but I understand the reasoning. Okay. So now we get to write a decision that Sarah can.
Type up for you,
Type up.
yes.
It's been a while since I've done this, so.
Yes.
Okay.
I think the last time we did a variance, we used page 255
255
in the appeals board book.
on the appeals board book.
Nice to see you again.
You?
It looks like it's gonna look beautiful when you're done.
Yeah, we're gonna have it top notch.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
You've been doing a lot to that house since you bought it. Oh, yeah,
Gentlemen,
oh, yeah. Oh, I'm sorry.
thank you.
Okay, so, to Stephen Carr, 381 Bailey Hill Road, Poland, Maine. It's to inform you the Board of Appeals acted on your application for a variance as follows. And name the applicant, mailing address, city and town, telephone, property owner, location of the property, which you don't need any of that from me. Zoning district which the property is located is what is the zoning district there? Document.
It's in the permit. I think it's for a residential one.
Rural residential 2. Okay. Tax and lot number is
1159.
1159. Applicants demonstrate a legal interest in the subject property by providing a copy of the deed, which I saw earlier in this, it was under Exhibit A. it's a warranty deed for that, done in 2005. Applicant proposed the following building structure or use on the activity of the property, and that's a reconstruction of the front wall of a sunroom, including a vertical wall and an additional 1-foot overhang, and then a walkway, a proposed covered walkway that exists on the, I don't know which direction that is. Covered walkway that's on the west side of the house. The applicant seeks a variance from the following dimensional standard, and that dimensional standard is Chapter 5, Section 507.2.D.6, which is page 85. Okay, and that's residential 2 is actually, residential 2 and residential 1 the same now?
Yes,
So they're the same thing?
yes.
Okay, so residential 2, and that's section, I have section G here, but minimum accessory structure setback in the front is 50 feet.
That's the principal structure.
Yeah. The land is being used as a home. Conditions and character of the neighborhood are, it's a residential neighborhood, but it's kind of spread out. The property has more than 650 feet of frontage. Conditions of the property are a house from, you said 1860?
1860 was original, and the 1980s was the rest of it,
So,
as I know it.
1860 with a addition done in the 1980s. Applicant requested the following type of variance, and that's a variance for setback variance for single-family dwellings. That's under D, I think, right? And on June 18th, 2025, the Board of Appeals conducted a public hearing on this application, variance met to deliberate on this application. Other additional facts relevant to the ordinance. So, we talked about the so we said that the proposed ordinance or structure would meet the performance standards of the code except for the specific provision that created the nonconformity from which relief is sought. And the strict application of the code to the petitioner would cause a practical difficulty when the following conditions exist. The need for a variance is due to the unique circumstances of the property and not to the general conditions of the neighborhood. The board agreed that it was due to the unique circumstances of the property, that is, the sunroom was built closer to the road than the existing ordinance. However, when the sunroom was built, it was not in non-conforming with the existing code. The granting of the variance will not produce an undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood. It will not unreasonably detrimentally affect the use or market value of abutting properties. We heard testimony from a member of the audience and a neighbor of the house that it would not produce an undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood or detrimentally affect market value of abutting properties. Practical difficulty is not a result of the action taken by the petitioner or prior owner. In this case, it's not action taken by the petitioner, but actually by the town to change the setbacks from the center of the road to the edge of the road. No other feasible alternative to a variance is available to the petitioner. We talked about a number of different feasible alternatives, but it appears to the board that the one that the petitioner has chosen is probably the most feasible alternative to keep the building from having water intrusion and rotting and collapsing. Granting of the variance will not unreasonably adversely affect the natural environment. We hold heard no testimony that it would adversely affect the natural environment. And that the structure or land area for which the variance is sought is not located in whole or in part from the shoreline zone or the 100-year floodplain. We heard testimony from the code enforcement officer that the structure is not located in the shoreline area or within the 100-year floodplain.
I think then we jump to 261 on the decision.
Okay. And that's
See.
C, okay. On the basis of the above findings and fact and conclusions of the law, the Board of Appeals voted by a vote of 3-0 to grant the application for variance subject to the following conditions of approval, if any. Any conditions that the board wants to add at this point?
That the code enforcement officer will inspect and verify the work when it's complete.
Okay. And verify that the 1-foot setback addition or reduction in setback has been maintained. And the variance has to be recorded with Registry of Deeds within 90 days. And if anybody wants to appeal this, they have to do so to Superior Court in 45 days. Any questions? Everybody want to vote on that?
I'll make a motion to vote to approve.
Second.
Okay, it's moved and seconded to approve the written decision of the board that we just did. All in favor? No one's opposed. It's 3-0 vote.
Wonderful.
All set? You
Yep.
have everything you need?
Yep.
Okay, good. So we'll let you go, Mr. Carr.
Thank you all.
Yep, and I think we got some other business we have to do.
You do.
It's not easy to do, but you managed it this time.
Well, I know there was some improvements I would have made to help out, but thank you very much.
It'll look really nice, I'll tell you that right now.
Bring a cheerleader, I guess.
Right, I guess. Well, it looked like a real problem. That sunroom definitely looked like it was falling
Yeah.
down. Okay, what do we want to do? Board reorganization.
Yes. So you have been chair twice in a row, so you cannot be chair anymore.
Yay!
I know that makes you
Was that
happy.
too enthusiastic?
Yeah. So one of you gentlemen is going to have to be chair. Then you can, Mark is available for vice chair, and all of you are available for vice chair and secretary. So
I did this for 25 years, and then the
it's
town
longer.
adopted, was it longer?
Yeah.
Then the town adopted a charter provision where people couldn't chair boards for the
Yeah.
town,
Term limited.
term limits. So
Yeah.
Good for
You've
me.
been very, very grateful for that, yes. So,
You'll have to sit next to Mark for the last 10 years. I can't measure up to that.
Well, it's not like he's going away, he's still gonna be
I'm
there.
happy to help whoever's here, and I'm happy to ask
You
those,
have experience.
ask
I'm
those.
glad he's gonna be a
questions.
member.
Didn't you have a stint at?
You did.
Yeah.
You were chair 3
Yeah.
years ago.
He was, that's true.
And that was scary.
You did an excellent job. You dealt with COVID and being chair and
Yeah.
over in the town
Yeah.
hall. That was.
That's right, that was tough sledding.
That was.
Everybody in masks and mumbling, yeah.
Yeah.
I think the new guy should try it.
I don't know what I'm doing out here, Jerry. I think you got the experience, man.
So someone has to nominate someone and
It's
then a
only 2
second.
years, you might luck out and not have to do it.
But so
Right.
My term's only good for another year.
Don't quit on me now.
I'm trying to make it easy on you guys.
Yeah.
Well, as long as Mark's not going anywhere, he can take his tutor in.
Okay, I nominate Jerry Bowes for, as chair of the board of appeals.
Second.
Yes.
Moved and seconded. Mr. Bowes becomes the chair of the appeals board.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Yeah, vote.
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
That's 2-1. That vote actually,
One nay.
Actually, it's 2-0-1.
that doesn't require 3 votes.
Yeah, yes, exactly. Who wants to be vice chair?
I nominate Mark.
I'll second that.
Oh, yeah, great. Payback is.
Well done, well done.
Okay.
Well, that makes you secretary. I just need someone to officially.
I'll nominate Nick for secretary.
All in favor of the slate of officers as listed?
Wonderful.
Okay, thank you.
And that's it.
Okay. All right, well, I'm glad to hear that we're no longer permitting docks, just because that's a headache for you, and that's somebody else's headache.
It was just the cost for the town.
Yeah.
I mean, I believe one of those docks cost us $12,000.
Wow.
We could not recoup any fees.
Just in terms of like paying lawyers to
Yep.
argue stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, I would take a motion for adjournment.
I'll second that.
Actually, that's your call now.
I'll take a motion for adjournment.
I move we adjourn.
Thank you. Second that.
All in favor?
Scott, you got a bit of focus on?